Let me tell you one more story. So we had just closed on our new property here. And so personally, I was still really struggling with this new property because it was not what I had wanted. I wanted lots of land. I wanted woods. We had 34 acres of woods before that we sold when God told us to move here. So I really thought that God would bring us to a place where he would at least match what we had before, replace what we had given up to move here. And that had been my expectation. But surprise, surprise, God had a different plan. This place was only 3.5 acres, hardly any trees, basically just a big, flat, boring field with a house. It is not what I wanted at all. Now, Craig was ecstatic about it. It was exactly what he wanted. He wanted a house just like this. So this was my personal battle. Now, both Craig and I are submitted and committed to following God's will for our lives, even and especially when it is not what we want. So I knew I was going to just work through this. I'm just going to pick up my cross and I'm going to suffer through. And I was going to get to a place where I would be thankful. But I wasn't there yet. And now God, in his grace and mercy, had given us so many signs and confirmations by that time that we were very certain that this is where we were supposed to be. So I wasn't questioning that. And that's his grace and mercy. But I was determined to surrender to his will. But it was not easy. And I was still working through the process of it. And so now God could have just let me battle through the struggle of it. But he cares. And especially if you are surrendered to him, he will help you. He will walk through the challenge with you. And so we'd been here less than a week. We were driving down our country road when all of a sudden, I couldn't believe it. I yelled to Craig, "Stop!" Well, he just about had a heart attack. He had no idea what in the world was going on. Sitting on the barbed wire fence on the side of the road was a scissor-tailed flycatcher. Do you know what a scissor-tailed flycatcher is? It's a particular kind of bird, and I had never seen one before in real life. And yet there it was, plain as day, sitting next to the road, a scissor-tailed flycatcher. Now, here's why I was so shocked. You see, I was one of those nerdy little kids that liked to read encyclopedias and National Geographics, and my mom and dad had this Roger Tory Peterson's Birds of North America when I was a kid, and I read that thing cover to cover, over and over again. It had these color plates, pictures in the middle of it, and I just loved those. And my very favorite bird in the entire book was the scissor-tailed flycatcher. Now, this is the actual book that my parents had all those years ago. And if you don't know what a scissor-tail flycatcher looks like, I'm going to show you. And you will immediately understand why this was my favorite bird. See if you can see it. Can you see it? Okay, I don't know if you can see it very well. So I'm going to scan it in and show it right up there. Look at that thing. He is beautiful. Here's another book, another more recent edition. I'm such a bird. I'm a total bird nerd. Here's another picture of him. Not quite as beautiful as the other one, but look at that thing. Just look at him. He's so beautiful. He's this one with the long tail. So beautiful. Looks like something tropical. But it's actually a southwestern bird. And I had never before lived in a place where I could see an actual scissor-tail flycatcher in real life. So I had never seen one before, except for those pictures in those books. And so I had no idea when we moved here that I now lived in the very northeasternmost corner of the territory of the scissor-tailed flycatcher. And so when I saw it sitting there with its crazy long tail hanging down, I immediately knew what it was. And I could not believe my eyes. So Craig stopped the car and backed up to the bird, and it just sat there and looked at us for the longest time. And I knew exactly what God was speaking to me. Only God knew that bird had been my favorite bird as a kid. Craig didn't have any idea. Only God could divinely orchestrate such an incredible sign to me, something so preposterous going back all the way to my childhood that I would know with absolute certainty that he was talking to me. And here's what he was saying. I see you. I know you're struggling, but I'm here. I have always been here, and I've got you, and it's going to be okay. Wow. Isn't that incredible? So I still have the book. Here it is. This is the book, Let me see right here. Yeah. So this is the very book that my parents had when I was a little kid. This was published in 1947. And no, I'm not that old, but it's an old book. So here is the scissortail flycatcher. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but right there, that is the very picture that I looked at over and over again when I was a little kid. And I always dreamed of this beautiful bird. I want to see this beautiful bird someday, God, when I was a little kid. And then he used that as a sign. Isn't that amazing? Oh, they're so beautiful. And these are tiny. It looks like it might be a big bird in this picture, but they're tiny. They're like finch sized. So their tails are 3 times longer than their bodies. They're so neat. So anyway, yeah. So that first summer, they're only here in the summer. And so that first summer, I saw them all the time after that. And then the second summer, I saw them a lot too. And God would always let me see them in ways where it was just obviously he was just like a little wink. He's just like, I'm here. I want to give you this fun little sign. Like one time I was running, we live out in the country. And so when I used to run, I would be running down these country roads and in between cow fields. And so there's always fences. And so one time I was running and the scissortail flycatcher kind of landed on the fence next to the road right in front of me. And then he just looks at me, And so I run as I got closer to him. Then he would fly a few fence posts further and just look at me. And so we kept doing that for like a mile. And then there was another time, this is so cool. We were on a float trip, Craig and I, with some family. And I had kind of gone on ahead of everybody, which I like to do because I like to be all by myself and praise God, when I'm out in nature. And so I was in this beautiful place on the water in a canoe, I guess kayak, and nobody else was there. And so I'm just praising God. And all of a sudden, this scissortail flycatcher flies down from straight above, comes down. Oh, it was crazy, right in front of my face. And he hovers in front of my face. And I'm just like, I can't believe it. And then he's looking right at me and he makes this little chirp. And then they do this thing, their long tail, they can do it like this. So like one side goes one direction, the other side goes the other direction. So he chirps and he goes boop like that with his tail, and then he flies up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I see that, God. Thank you for that sign. And then one other sign with that bird I want to tell you. So we live in the country, right? So for us, the big city is Branson, which is 30 minutes away. It's really not a big city, but for us, that's where we go when we go to the city. So you never see these birds in the city. You always see them only in the country. And so one time, Craig and I were driving in Branson, and all of a sudden, a scissortail flycatcher flies down and kind of hovers in front of our car, and then does his tail like that, and then flies off. Like, thank you, God. So the first 2 summers, I saw them constantly. And it's interesting because those first 2 years that we were here were really difficult for me. A lot of different reasons, not just, trying to deal with the fact that I didn't like this property at first. Now I love it. But because it was during that time that I had to kick my abusive mother out of my life. There's some other thing. Craig retired. And so we were learning how to homestead, trying to deal with that. Our whole life was just kind of turned upside down because of all the changes. So all of that was hard. I started being persecuted for my faith by these podcasters. And then this guy started attacking my business. I'm not going to tell you all the details, but if you follow my channel, you know what I'm talking about. So my business was devastated from this. So all this stuff happened those first 2 years. Those first 2 summers, God let me see that bird constantly, right? And so I just thought, since we had just moved here, I'm like, well, that's just the way it is here. I'm going to see scissortail flycatchers every summer. Do you know that last summer and this summer so far, I've not seen one single scissortail flycatcher? So that it was even more of a miracle than what I realized. But I'm not going through a hard time right now. I don't need those signs right now. So God saves the signs for when you need them. In fact, sometimes I'll ask God to show me a sign and he will say, do you need a sign right now? And I'll say, no, God, I really don't. He's like, well, let's save the signs. Let's keep them very special, okay? Because if he shows you signs all the time, they won't seem as special anymore. So he is very pointed. He's very calculated about when he will speak to you in these ways.